Thank you so much, Lavelle. This is Brady Black, my friend. You can have a seat if you'd like. So Brady and I got to know each other briefly over Chick-fil-A through his pastor, who's a friend of mine named Wes Walls, there at a church in West Seattle called Dwelling Place. And when I was talking to Wes about, like, hey, our church is going to be doing a series on art and faith, he goes, there's a guy at my church, his family, Brady's an artist, and he's just this great artist. So I'm excited for you to get to hear from Brady. I'm just going to ask some questions, and then he will be around after the service, and so feel free to, if there's something that stirred in your mind or a question you had that you wanted to ask him in person, he'd be willing to chat with you a little bit afterwards too. So, Brady, welcome. Let's start off with how long have you been doing art and drawing, and you can include your childhood years and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I haven't actually been doing art all that long, mostly because I tried my entire life to not be an artist. And I'm just kind of a disaster at everything I try. I was tie wear, suit wear, trying very hard to be professional, tried very hard to be super churchy, and I'm just kind of, and people just sniff that out. And so in the end, I got into a place where mentally I was just doing so bad that basically art was the only thing that I did. And in the classic form, using art really improved that. And people, I just kind of went nuts and started writing on walls and graffiti. And people were like, you should keep doing it. I was like, I'm doing things that are not, this is not normal stuff. And I'm trying to go to jail. And they're just like, no, look, it's pretty. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, I'm very, very angry. And they're just like, do it more. And so I just kept doing it. And so a lot of my art, some of it is with permission, and some of it is without permission. But I've been doing it. I'm getting paid for it for the past maybe 3 years.
Yeah. Brady has a long story, and I was grateful to hear it. Really amazing, crazy, awesome story. So he's been all over the world. So some of these pictures as they're passing through, some of these are recent, that's in Seattle, North Aurora area, and some of these maybe from the Middle East when he lived out there. So anyways, just so you know, it's a big, broad story. Let me ask you, how does your faith influence your work as an artist?
I think my faith, for me, it pushes me to where I like to operate. I like to operate in the edges of things. I like to, it's also quite, I think my faith is helping me be quite mischievous. And so, because I see God's mischief in the Bible quite a bit, I think there's a lot of mischief makers and rabble-rousers that are, my favorite characters in the Bible. But also the people that I work with, I like the least of these means something, and the least of these is actually not fun to work with. They are not nice. It is not rewarding. It is stinky and not fun. And I find myself constantly being drawn to the edges, to the least of these. And I feel quite comfortable in the edges. And so I think you see that. And also I think you see in my art the difficult beauty. For me, this is the thing that I really want to push into, is the idea of God being in the difficult beauty, where many times, especially Christian art, we're going to paint a pretty sunset or some pretty mountains or a nice little cabin in the woods or something, and or we could paint somebody who's bent over, can't stand up because of the drugs that person's ingested, and one of those is an image bearer of God, and it's not the pretty one. And so for me, recognizing that and pushing into that empathy of this disgusts me in many ways, maybe it makes me angry in many ways. I'm like, yes, that's where we go. It's super easy to go walk in the wilderness and be like, look, it's great, it's beautiful. And that's true, it is very beautiful. But that person who can't stand it, and the prostitutes on Aurora, it's that I talk to, and I'm like, you guys, you're an image bearer of God.
Yes. Yeah, I just want to sit in that for a little bit, just thinking about beauty in the places we don't expect to see it, the image of God in places that we don't want to go. And in that Matthew 25 passage, I think it was, where Jesus is, if you've done this to the least of these, you've done it to me. And yeah. How do you hope your art affects other people, those that are viewing it and receiving it and kind of thinking about, how do you hope it affects them?
Unfortunately, it's a lot of my personality. I hope it antagonizes you. And in overseas, I did a lot of, I just kind of leaned in. That's in my nature, and I just kind of leaned into the antagonism. And here, the antagonism is a little different. It's more of kind of like, in Seattle, it can be kind of sneery and ironic and this kind of stuff. And so in Seattle, I find myself making extremely bright colors that border on garish. The bringing together of communities, to make art, where it's like, we don't do this kind of stuff. And it's like, we bringing people together. And so that looks nice and cute. It's like, but in my mind, it's very antagonistic. I'm putting stuff on the streets that you don't see, and I want you to contend with that, because it's super easy to be all very sneery and dark and making skulls and such. Like, that's very cool. And so that, but then in other parts, like in Houston, it's very different politically. And so I make all kinds of art that is antagonizing there. And then in the Middle East, I make different kinds of antagonizing art. So it's just kind of, unfortunately, I'm kind of you can kind of get a vibe. I kind of have a contrarian vein and things. And so
art is prophecy in a sense, kind of Old Testament prophecy.
Yeah, and I hope that it's like it whatever it is, it's good, it's goodness, truth, and beauty, and the church is generally pretty good at truth, or especially in some parts of the States, very true, but it's like, but truth can look very different in some ways, and beauty can look really different. Yes. And I hope, and I also have just an air of mischief and kind of whimsy, and so hopefully there's some joy. So I like to think there's some goodness in that, because like when you're driving down the street or when you're walking and you're like, oh, there's something there. Hopefully that is a little bit of, hey man, life is kind of awesome.
That's so good. What's something you would want the church to know about what it's like to work in the art industry as a Christian?
I think working in the art industry as a Christian, I think in one sense I want it to make it unexceptional. Yeah. It's just, I don't know, like I imagine there's Christians that are like really like burning good at being an accountant. Sure. And like you should be like a really rock star accountant. Yeah. For Jesus. And you're surrounded by people who some believe, some don't believe in this kind of stuff. And I think in the art industry it's the same kind of way, I think one is just that it's unexceptional, and I just like doing this, and you like doing other stuff, and as ill-advised as it may be, I try to make a living from it. Yeah. I hope that your hobbies don't lead you down the path of like trying to make a living from them. But I think it's like it's not scary. Like these are just people, right? I think that the church, especially in Seattle, can be kind of like insular, a little bit scared of like the other, whatever the other might be. And it's just like, man, they're not scary. They're fantastic people. We get to have great conversations, and it's like, I absolutely love it.
So let me just kind of, in your perspective, let me ask this question too. How can the church support arts, the artists, more intentionally or more in a way that there would just be some more life and light happening there?
I think trying to encourage it in different ways, because I didn't know that I was allowed to be an artist. Like I said, I wasn't even really doing art until about the past 4 or 5 years. And there was like certain things I was allowed to do, right? Like you could paint like Noah's Ark things in the childcare thing, or you could maybe make a Jesus coloring book and stuff like that, which is good. Like we need Jesus coloring books. But like as a Christian artist, I understood I had to have some sort of very direct evangelical message. Like I had to either be like painting something that could hang in a church, or some sort of like, if I'm going to paint something, then it's got to be like one-to-one directly related to some sort of like religious message that's very overt. And I think encouraging artists to be like, man, like, go be a really, really good artist, and it can look really different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been said a lot, but it's like there's a real big difference between to being a Christian artist or an artist who's a Christian. Yeah. And I think that pushing into that difference and allowing that, and kind of speaking about that and encouraging them, and also like the artists they're probably kind of like they're kind of at the edges of spots. Like they're asking questions that really irritate your leaders. Yeah. They got piercings and they got tattoos and they got funky hair and they got, that's just what we do, right? And it's like I revolutionarily in my world am so straight-laced, and that freaks people out. And so they're like, you don't have any tattoos, you don't do any drugs, you've been married for 23 years, and like, man, that is hardcore. And so for me, it's like, if I was in like, Houston, Texas, I'd be like tatted up and all this kind of stuff. But when I'm in Seattle, I'm like, dude, look out, I got my shirt tucked in, I've been married. So I think just encouraging that and not being afraid of, the weird arty kid,
Thank you. So I also wanted to just preface for our church. We've been in conversation with what Brady does right now. Mostly, I mean, I know you do many things. Check out his Instagram; it's pretty awesome. All the different projects he's working on. But one of the main things that he does is called communal murals. Is that right? Or
community murals.
Community murals. And so you see some pictures here of from different places all around the world. He's brought a neighborhood, a community together, and he makes the design, and then we get to paint it. And so I've been chatting with him about it, and chatting with Bree and other people that are a part of the Renton Municipal Arts Commission. We're thinking about doing something out here with Brady on this wall right here, this blank concrete wall. And potentially spring, summer, sometime, we're still in conversation about it. But you can be in prayer about that. That's something that I think would be a really cool way to bring some light, life, color, beauty to this neighborhood, right where our church building exists. And so, and prayers for us as we're in communication with Renton and the city and all that kind of stuff. But lastly, I just wanted to say thank you for what you do from our church, from the people here. What you do is valuable. What you do is beautiful. It's hard. It's very challenging, but I think God is using it to bring a sense of goodness, and beauty and truth to places that are just longing for it, but they don't realize it. And when they see it, I just want you to know we're very grateful for what you do.
Thank you. That's really encouraging. Do a lot of that.
Okay.
That's great. It feels good.
Yeah. Good. Would you welcome or thank Brady with me as we? Thanks, Brady.